Talk Shoes. Recorded live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of the blacksci-fi-society.com website. Join it, send your friends, great content there, and some wonderful people. My name is William Hayashi. I'm your host for tonight, and our special guest is Thomas Johnson II. His father was so good, they had to make another one. That's how good it was. And he's an artist. He's doing some pretty cool, innovative things. He's having fun doing 3D printing, which is the hot thing in technology these days, but a lot of people don't know what it's good for. I mean, it's obviously good for a lot of medical things. They are making replacement ears and noses and vaginal tissue and even valves for the heart. Over in Germany, they're printing jet engine nozzles. So they're printing out of metal. And McCormick Place here at last year's auto show, they printed a complete 3D car. And all they had to do was add the electric engine and the wheels. So 3D printing is pretty cool, but he's an artist extraordinaire. He has an underutilized Twitter site, and we'll get into that because it's only underused because he's new. Apparently, Jarvis loves the hell out of him. I like him too. I've seen him online. Welcome to the show, Thomas. And do you prefer Thomas, Tom? What would you like for me to call you?
Whatever easy for you, whichever one.
Okay. And then where are you coming to us from?
Detroit, Michigan.
How's the weather up there?
Pneumonia class. We just now it's raining.
Oh, see, yeah, that's and you know what's funny? Here in Chicago, this is what I see. You know, it'll be really, really cold, sub-zero temperatures, things like that. And the first day it gets maybe into the 20s or the 30s. White people are out there running in their shorts. I don't understand it myself, but hey, if it works for them, that's fine. And did you grow up in Detroit?
Yes.
So you're a lifelong resident. And when you were growing up in Detroit, were you in the interior of the city or one of the collar suburbs, or what part?
Definitely the interior. Pretty much like where did I grow up? It was when I first remember. I know we were on the border of a city called Hamtramck.
Okay.
That was as far back as I can remember when I was a kid. And then
Sure.
I remembered we were further from there, deeper into the city off of a street called Van Dyke.
Okay.
Then we moved from there, and then we were closer to one of the main streets called Gratiot.
Mm-hmm. And your neighborhoods, how were they in terms of schools and stuff? Do you think you had what we would consider, as black folks, a pretty standard upbringing, or how was that?
Oh, definitely. During my time, which was a while back, we had teachers that were, that got involved with you. They made sure that you were doing your homework. Your parents were notified when you weren't. And it was almost one of those times where when you got in trouble, you got in trouble by everybody, the teachers.
Oh, man, I hated that.
Yeah.
I hated that. If I was acting a fool out in the street, like 3 times on the way home, I'd get cussed out, and by the time I got home, my mother knew about it.
Yep.
Man.
Yep.
And so, just to let people know, you're an artist, and you've done some extraordinary work, a lot of really good work, robotic-type themes, and things like that. Although, when I look at you, and you also have a website, I'll tell everybody where they can go for, is this your first book, only book? What is it?
What it is it's a combination of things because I kind of got scatterbrained with it being the first one.
Okay.
It was originally starting off as a book, just one thick book with every mech that I drew, and I had stories behind each one. The problem that turned out was I had stories, but then I realized I didn't have any characters. So I had to start getting characters designed and everything. Then I said, I don't have the storyline really written out. So I had to start doing that. And then it started to evolve into getting bigger and more pages. And, as I started to meet more people, it began to develop even further and further. until where now I'm still doing it to where at one point last year I was going to do I started a Kickstarter for it, and it was going to be a hard copy, hardcover, and everything like that. And when I saw the amount I was getting for the Kickstarter, I pulled it back because it was a small amount, and I said, you know what, I'm asking for too much, and I'm not giving enough from what I'm looking at. I said the pages were kind of blank, you know, it's like you see one character, then it's white background, and you see the stats.
I get you.
And I said I wanted to get a little bit more.
Yeah. Before you go any further, for those of you, I dropped the link in the chat room. But for those of you picking this up as a podcast, it's RAXON, RAXON, UniversalDominion.com. All one word, no periods, no underscores or anything. RAXON, UniversalDominion.com. Check it out. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. And you know, where did I leave off? I know I can ramble.
Well, you were talking about that you didn't think your explanation was populated enough to generate the interest that you wanted to get.
Right. And so I went back, you know, I withdrew it, went back to the drawing board, and originally I was going to have a comic inside of it. But then when I looked at it and I said, you know, I started speaking with Tyrone Jackson, who's a good friend of mine, who I found thanks to Jarvis on Black Science Fiction Society.
Right.
And, you know, we got to talking, and he said, why don't you just make some comics? And I had always thought about that, but I was always afraid. And so he kind of, you know, gave me the kick in the butt I needed to go ahead and do it. And next thing I know, I'm whipping out my stories left and right, and it's like because they were in my head for so many years, and to the point where I'm at number 12 right now as far as comic books that I'm.
Nice. What were you scared of?
I don't know. It was like I haven't drawn a comic since probably the 80s.
Okay.
And it was like, you know, and even then they were just mediocre. I mean, my skills have improved since then, but I was never really good at drawing people, so that was always a thing of holding me back a bit. My father knew how to draw people real good, but I never could. But I was always good at drawing robots, creatures, and everything like that, structures and everything. So I was always nervous of that. And I let fear, you know, control a lot of things. And then, you know, life kicks in. You know, you're going to work, just life in general, doing stuff, and time goes past. And so then it was like, you know, okay, I'll do it. So I started storyboarding out my comics and everything. Then I started finding different commissioners who can draw it the way I wanted it drawn, you know, the way I needed it to be seen. And, you know, when I started doing that, it was like, wow, okay, now I went on ahead and done the first comic. I haven't released it yet, but I said, you know what, start pulling them out my head, you know, because I've had them in there for decades. Let's go ahead and start putting them on paper. And like I said, before I know it, I'm at number 12, and I've still got tons to go. But 12, I said I was going to plan on releasing for 2016, along with the main thick book, which is going to be like a source book. Which will have, you know, the basic information on everything that's going on, so that if you don't see the comic book, you can pick up that book, and it'll still have, you know, it'll still show about the comics and telling about them, where you can find out little, you know, the stories and seeing everything in action. So, yeah,
very cool.
It's a life of its own.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that your dad was an artist. When you were coming up, you know, when you were younger, did you draw a lot, and did you draw with purpose? You know, obviously, all kids draw if they have the opportunity. You know, if they're not in such a disadvantaged position where they can't even afford to draw. But I mean, when you were coming up, was your dad a professional artist?
No, but you would have thought he was.
Because of how good he was?
Yeah, he could draw really, really good. And I always liked to watch him draw because he had a unique style the way he did it.
Yeah, and apparently that inspired you, right?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. He was the biggest inspiration for me.
Yeah, and then when did you start? I mean, really kind of putting your nose to the grindstone. Where you started hitting your, you know, not so much the commercial part, but where you started as a younger person hitting your creative stride.
I would say it was probably middle school, between my
Okay.
7th and 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
When I really started doing a lot more. I used to, back in those times you had Voltron, Thundercats, all of those in the 80s that were going on, and they were like big inspirations for me, so I started drawing those, and to where I was drawing my own little stories of my own little characters in middle school. And even friends of mine would say, hey, can you draw me this character? Can you draw me that character? Ooh, can I get a copy of that? And at those times I didn't have no copy machine, so I had to draw them a whole nother of the exact same thing, which got tedious. But,
Did you charge any money?
I didn't even think about it at that time. I probably said, give me a milk or something.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I just wondered if you were, exploiting this commercially really early. And so your dad's an artist, not necessarily, a professional artist or anything, but I would imagine there was probably some decent encouragement from him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when I used to, the way he drew and the way I drew were two different styles. But when I started watching how he was drawing, I started to adapt his style and combined his with mine. And actually, it's the same style I actually use to today. So it's like
long
for me,
last, yes.
It's
it
harder for
obviously
me to
served
draw
you
on
well.
a computer. Yeah. I like to draw like on paper, and I draw on just about anything. You give me a piece of paper and pen or pencil, and I'm just drawing all over the place.
And let's get a little past middle school. I mean, did this skill that you were obviously developing very seriously for yourself, where did it take you as you got older?
Well, in high school, and this is really showing my age, and just how far back this project goes. In high school is pretty much when I actually got started. When my skills got a lot better. And that's actually when I actually kind of started the RAXON. That was probably like 1989. When I started drawing a lot of that, and then from like 89 to like 94 is when I was really going crazy with it. I was drawing ships, vehicles, body armors, all of that, and I was really going full steam ahead with it. And my mom even got me an application for Disney at one point. And they said, you submit in your drawings, submit in some of your drawings and everything. And I submitted some of mine in. They sent me back a letter saying, yeah, your stuff is nice, but it's not the direction we want to go in. Easy way of saying, yeah, you got some crap we don't want. But
well, no, I mean I wouldn't necessarily say that. Let me tell you why I think that. We have cycles of saturation. Okay, like our current saturation cycle is vampires. All right. Everybody's doing that. And when you talk about mid 80s, late 80s, going into the early 90s, there were so many like projects that I could see Disney not wanting to look like they're copying. But I don't think that in any way their rejection diminished what you might have been doing. Obviously, I haven't seen what you were doing. But, I mean, you had Gigantor, you had Astro Boy, you had all of the Japanese stuff that was coming over. There was a whole lot of robot-based stuff. And, Disney wants to think that they are trendsetters. And, I remember, what game did I play today? Oh, Mech Warrior. You had all of these tie-ins. You had all of these, video games are really picking up right then. And so, if they say they were going in another direction, man, I would not in the least, looking at what you do now, would have considered your stuff to be substandard, just out of that creative cycle because it was oversaturated. And so as you're looking at what you're doing then, were you thinking in terms of being creative to the extent that you were going to be able to distinguish your work from other people in the genre, or were you kind of looking and seeing what the landscape was like? Where was your head at then that made you persist in pursuing what had originally excited you?
The funny thing about that, everything you just said, it was them saying the rejection. it didn't push me in the opposite direction of saying, or the direction of saying, I want to just give up on it. It pushed me in the direction of saying, you know what, I'm just going to do better.
Right.
And from then on, I started, looking at my drawings, trying to fix them up, going over older drawings, going back and revamping stuff, and trying to recreate everything, and doing it better, as I was getting better in my skills. And so, actually, with them saying no, it actually gave me the encouragement and the kick that I kind of needed to really get me to go further, because it was one little point, I was sad about it, and it was a hit, but it was also a wake up call, because my parents were like, it's not the end of the world. Just because they said no doesn't mean other people won't say no. And that kind of gave me encouragement as well. And I was like, oh, yeah, well, there are other people out there, And my father always said, well, you can be one of those people, if you choose to. And, it was there with me, and it always stayed with me. Like I said, life just kicks in at times, and sometimes you got to put stuff on the back burner, and take care of responsibilities. Got to work, got to eat, got to pay bills, So,
well, the tendency is, and this is for most creatives, and I know people are going to argue with me, and they're going to talk about, their bluster and how they were sure that they were going to be this, that, or the other thing. But as a creative, it's very hard to separate, criticism from oneself. When people get criticism for their work, many, the majority of people kind of take it as an invalidation of self. Like they are not worthy, rather than, well, maybe I could go in another direction, or like you, I'm just going to try harder, to hell with them. So, I mean, it's good that you did that, but I think that one of the crucial parts, it sounds to me like you really had a great supportive family, and that, you can't diminish that at all. That is such an important thing, because, who are your first heroes? Your parents, what they do. They're like, they're almost like superheroes in your life until you reach a certain age, when you want to go, man, my dad doesn't know jack. And then 20 years later, you go, man, that was a smart mother. That was a very intelligent man. So, we go through these phases. But, I mean, it's kind of cool that you turn that, and that was in your teens, right? You turn that rejection into a call for action, a clarion call for you to do better. And so as you were refining, and it sounds also like you kept a lot of your work. You kept up with your work. You didn't throw anything away. As you were refining, what were the changes that you saw most in how you were doing what you were doing?
A lot of it was, putting more effort into it, and trying to treat it more like something serious versus just something to do when I'm just bored. And I started, starting to look at, stories and everything, and I started really looking at my drawings and saying, I'd love to see that on TV, and that's when I really started getting engrossed into them, of wanting to see them more, looking at shows like Battlestar Galactica, the ships and everything, and I said, I'd like to see mine like that. I'd like to see a model of mine like that on TV, or in a movie. So I started, playing around with stuff. The unfortunate, well, I ain't going to say the unfortunate. The funny thing is I never got into different kinds of art tools, like pens and different pencil sizes and everything. The most art tools I ever used was a ruler and I'm just say if I'm saying this right, a protractor, and a pencil and pen. I only used them for just to get straight lines, but when I started learning, when I really mastered the style between my father's and my own, I started being able to draw straight lines, or almost as straight as I can get them, without having to use a ruler, because I said I'm not always going to have a ruler. So I just started refining a lot more and reinventing myself and, really starting to really grow up, trying to become a man, to say, I got to get this stuff. It's not going to just pop out of the woodworks, on me. So it's got to get done one way or another. So how it's going to get done? Somebody's not going to just be saying, "Oh, well, there goes Thomas stuff. Let's give him a movie deal," or let's put his cartoon on TV. You don't have a cartoon. You don't even have a storyline yet. So those things popped in my head, and also reality checks from my father was saying, you gotta, if you want those things, you gotta put it together. It's like the first time me and him bought a model kit. It was like, you gonna put it together? He said, no, that's for you to put together. You want to play with it, learn how to put it together. And I took it out the box and read the instructions, had everything, and he sat there and watched me put it together. And he was like, was that hard? And I said, no. So, it began to develop more and more. So I started looking at the things from the past and incorporating them into the future and just moving in that direction. Not as fast, but, a lot cautious, because I said I wanted to make sure that if I did something, I did it right, and, do it right or don't do it at all, kind of. So
yeah,
it kind of went in that direction. So, like I said, just been refining everything and then putting, taking thoughts out of my head, putting them on paper, looking back at them. This could be fixed. These lines are a little crooked, and just holding on to everything. And I lost a lot of drawings, actually, from a fire we had. I lost a ton of drawings. And so
I know how that is.
Yeah. And I even went back and redrew a lot of good 60% of them.
Wow.
Because I remember them.
Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that just listening to what you've got, the first thing you talk about, maybe putting out a book, a comprehensive, almost like a coffee table book, and it, to show to at least show the history of the development of what you've got. Those are always interesting, especially if you get some traction from the public. Everybody kind of wants to know, well, how did you get there from here? And then when you talk about the thing that's interesting to me is you go, well, I had a number 2 pencil, and I was doing all my drawings with a number 2 pencil, and then I discovered colored pencils, different line weights, and that's what you were saying. You were like doing self-taught things, which makes me want to ask: are you? Did you have any formal classes? Did you take art classes to kind of help fill out things? Like people tell me, well, I had to take anatomical drawing or anatomy so that my life drawings of people were more authentic and more accurate. What about you? Even though you were drawing things that aren't necessarily, you have to have 5 fingers on a hand instead of the way William draws a Mickey Mouse hand, 3 fingers and a thumb. Well, dude, I'm not an artist, and I see some of the stuff that you do, and what other artists do, and it blows me away that at that degree of talent, because it's something that is foreign to me. So, as you were coming up, going through school and stuff, did you take art classes? You mentioned that your teachers were really involved in helping out the students. Where did that all fall on you? Were you fortunate enough to do that? Did you need the classes? Did you not need the classes? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, when you're in, middle school, they give you classes. You had art, everything. But the funniest part was when I went to high school, and they were teaching us how to paint and everything. And I was excited because, we were showing us how to paint fruit and everything. And one day, probably about a quarter into the semester, teacher comes up and says, it's time for you to go. And I'm like, what'd I do? He's like, you're too advanced for this class. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, how can I be too advanced for this class and I'm still trying to learn how to draw fruit in a basket? And he's like, I'm looking at your drawings that you have in your notepads over here. You're too advanced for this class. You don't even need this. I said, well, I want to learn how to paint. And he says, nope, we need room for for kids that really need to learn how. And I remember I went to the principal's office because I said, I want to call my parents.
Right.
And, they said, why? I said, because I just got put out of art class because the teacher said I'm too advanced. The principal was like, really? I'm like, yeah. I said, how is that? So my parents wound up coming up to the school. I'm sitting out in the hallway because they came after school. I had to go to I basically had to wait in the principal's office this whole time.
Right.
They come. I go to my other classes. Then they tell me, okay, wait after school. My parents get there. They go talk to the teacher. They're in there for about a half hour. I'm sitting out in the hallway in one chair. Nobody's in school. Then they come back out. Yep. They come back out and they said, okay, time to go. And I'm like, well, what happens? You don't have art class no more. And I'm like, and the funny thing is, there was never really any discussion afterwards.
I mean, once your parents tell you you don't have that class anymore, you don't have that class anymore.
Right. And I said, well, why not? You just don't have it no more. And I wound up getting ROTC instead.
Oh, no. I would have thought maybe advanced art or something, but how did that happen? Was it just because ROTC was available? Or?
Yep.
Or, okay.
And I loved it. I fell in love in there.
Right.
And I actually wound up making a commandant of all Detroit public high schools.
Man.
So it
now,
was.
I mean, I've never heard anything like that. You know, get out, get out. Why? You're too good. You don't need it. Get out. Well, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I mean, yeah. And so you're taking ROTC. I'm guessing you're still drawing though. You know, on your own time and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah,
then
yeah,
so,
I never stopped.
Yeah. Now, so I mean, I could see why you wanted to do paint. I mean, first of all, paint is color.
Right.
Paint is perspective. Paint is, you know, saturation. Paint is fooling the eye. I mean, painting is a lot of things. You know, color is so important in drawing.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny that they didn't have a replacement for it, but obviously your teacher had a compelling argument to make your parents say, you know, well, you don't have that class anymore. So
right.
when you kept doing your art, did were you starting to incorporate color at that time? I mean, were you branching out? I mean, how was your the physicality of your ability maturing at that point?
Well, at one time, for a while, the colors I was using was different colored pens, like red and blue and black.
Right.
And then one day, I remember I was at a store. I can't remember which store, but I remember I went down the aisle to buy some more pens. I was going to buy a pack of pens, and I looked at some crayons, and I said, I don't want to use no crayons. And I saw some markers, so I said, let me try this. You know, I picked some drawings in my head, and I said, maybe I can do that. And so then next thing I know, I started experimenting, you know, a lot of failures because the markers were going through the paper because I was still experimenting with, you know, coloring.
Right.
And, you know, over time, I started, you know, just using markers. You know, I didn't care what kind I had. The first ones I bought were the thick ones. And
right.
then
Big
I bought,
fat Sharpies.
Yeah, those kind. Big Crayola ones.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then I bought some. When I saw a pack, they had like 2 rows in it one time, and it was like just the skinnier ones. And I said, oh, that's a lot of colors. I said, I can do all kinds of that. And then I saw some 11 by 17 inch paper. And so I said, I can draw some bigger stuff on here. And next thing I know, I'm drawing big, and I'm coloring. I'm going through markers like a hot knife through butter, you know. And as I'm experimenting, it was one day I got a grease stain on one of my drawings, and I said, wait a minute, that's some shading. So I redrew the drawing again, and I shaded in that exact same color. And I said, oh, so this is how you do it, how you get the color, a light color, a little darker. And I started messing around, like doing little corners, edges. And I said, so this is how they do it. But then, once again, then somebody else comes in, my father. He's like, you want to see a trick? And I say, sure. He draws a box, shades in 2 sides. He's like, look at that, now it's 3D. And I said, why didn't you show me this sooner? So the next thing I know, I'm drawing boxes in almost every one of my drawings just to do shadings.
Right.
He showed me the same thing with doing circles. Did like a circle and then do a half shade in a circle. He's like, there go your moon right there. And I'm like, I said, this is why I love my father.
I know exactly how that feeling of discovery goes. I took an adult education class in airbrush.
Okay.
And mostly, let's be honest. I only took it so that I'd be in there with creative women, you know, and meeting with. I'm not gonna lie, you know, it was one of the, I forget what the name of the school is here in Chicago, but when I found out how to make glints, to make a glint on metal or on a shiny surface. It blew my. I put glints on everything. Oh, you know what it was? It was like J.J. Abrams with lens flares. That's how that's how I was with glints. And so, but discovering how to do it was so cool. So I mean, I relate to that feeling because it's like, oh man, this is a whole new thing that I've learned, and I just want to put it everywhere.
Mhm.
And when you look at your drawings, obviously, you've got shading down, you've got glints down, you've got metal down, you've got texture. When did you think that you had gotten to a fairly mature level of drawing? Was it after high school, or did you really have it? Were you really getting a good grasp when you were in high school still?
I was starting to get it, and then after high school, life kicked in, working full-time job, and seeing paychecks and money, and then getting a car, having a car and everything. Yeah, that kicked in and put everything on the back burner until some years later. And I actually, slowed down in the drawing to where it was just a little bit here, depending on what's going on, if I'm talking to a girl or not or whatever. If I'm spending all my time with her and I'm not even thinking about drawing.
I get it. I mean, when I discovered that girls didn't have cooties, it was a whole new awakening for me.
But when I came back to it, it was kind of like I had to reinvent it once again. I started looking at some of my older drawings that I did, that I was able to save, and was like, man, I got a lot of errors in these, so start redoing them again. So I started doing that, building them back up, and fixing them. And now here's the thing: when I started, I still, even to this day, color with markers.
Okay.
What I've had to do was I commissioned a lot of my drawings because, and this is where it was so funny with Tyrone and me, we chat every day. He was like, you got to get on the computer and start doing the stuff on the computer. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, you can do all of this stuff. You don't have to be worried about erasing with a pencil and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just old school. Part of it's a little bit of laziness, but, and he's like, you can learn how to do all the textures, and then you ain't got to be worried about paying commissioners. I said, true. So, but it's fun to draw with markers and do the shadings and everything myself, because I like to do it with my hands, even though computers are the way now and you see a lot more details. But it's just something to me. It's just, I don't know. It's just the old school, feel of it. Just drawing it. And, I remember seeing stuff that had tons of imperfections on it, on like old toy boxes, where they did markers and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I see the smudge right there. Yeah, this wasn't done with computer. So a lot of the stuff like that, puts me in that mind. I mean, true enough, yeah, it's great to embrace, and I'm planning on doing it, and getting into the computer age, so to speak.
Right.
It's just so much fun to me not doing it.
Well,
and
I mean,
looking at the mistakes.
But it's also, I mean, somebody mentioned, JC mentioned, embracing a new medium is difficult, and it is. I mean, the drawing by hand and drawing by computer are almost, other than shape, they're almost two entirely different art mediums. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
At least to me from the outside, because the control that you need and it's just different. And I could see the reluctance. I mean, okay, here you've got a refined skill. All right, you already know how to draw. You know how to to texture, to shape. You know how to do all of those things in one way. And then all of a sudden, I can see why it would be reluctant. It is so completely different. Excuse me. That I could see why it would take you a while to embrace. Have you? Excuse me. Have you looked at tools?
Yeah, I've been recommended a few, to look into. I can't recall the name of it, but I know Tyrone has. He's let me know quite a few ones that are pretty. He said are pretty easy to use, and that you still will be using like pen and everything almost something like a tablet. And I said, okay, I can embrace that. I still just gotta do it. I just gotta stop once again letting certain things deter me, and get my mind set into it, and just say, you know what, okay, this is going down. Let's just do this and do it. Instead of making up the excuses that I kind of seem to do a lot.
Excuse me. Well, I mean, I think the like thing that I had to go through was, sorry, something went down the wrong way. When I started doing screenwriting, I used WordPerfect as a writing tool, and I was stubborn. And then I found, some software for writing the script that I took a long time to embrace. But man, once I got past that hump of being reluctant, I can't imagine doing it any other way now,
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you'll run into that. Who knows?
Right.
Okay, so why, let me ask you this. Why the emphasis, why the fascination with doing mech kind of drawings?
Let's see. I grew up watching Godzilla movies, Johnny Sacco and Flying Robot, Gigantor. I mean, I grew up in that time when giant robots was just a thing. Ultraman,
that
all
80s
of those.
thing.
Yeah, late 70s, early 80s. And they always fascinated me. And to where, like I said, when I was drawing in middle school, I was drawing my own characters. I was drawing my own robot stories, where I had one called My Robot.
Okay.
And it looks similar. And the thing that makes me so frustrated at times, I said I should have done this sooner, but it was like, it was a cheesy little story. I had a stick figure as the human character, and the robot, and every time it fought a monster or something, a creature, it would actually get a new weapon or a new piece. And to the point where I was drawing it small, and then I remember one of the last pages, it was like almost the size of the piece of paper, and one of my friends was like, well, where's the space for the other stuff? I was like, there ain't no space. It stepped on it, and that's the end of everything.
Okay, all right.
So it was like, it was just getting bigger on the paper for every little story. So it was like I was drawing everything super small, and then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And, it was just, fun. And I always just had fun with robots, like I said, grew up on all those ones, seeing them, and then seeing them in the movies. I think the first movie I remember seeing a real robot was maybe Saturn III, where it was a cyborg.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that movie and Empire Strikes Back in the beginning, the AT-ATs and the Scout Walker. Just seeing, I've always just been a robot head, then seeing them in anime, it just really did it. That really did it. So it was like, like I say, coming in in the afternoon to watch Johnny Sacco. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. You talked about in the beginning, excuse me, where you had great drawings, and then what you wanted to do was build stories around them. Tell us a little bit about the evolution of you as a storyteller, because it is kind of flipping gears from just doing the drawings,
Right. It started when, I think it was when I drew my first big ship. And when I drew it, I was just picturing it doing all different things, coming out of the ground, flying in space. And then I said, well, what would I call this ship?
Right.
So, started thinking of names. Then started thinking of, well, what does it do? How big is it? And so, those little things. And one day I just started writing it down, saying, well, this can do that. And I can't remember what it was. I went into a hobby shop one time, and I saw like some writings on the Battlestar Galactica, and saying how many cannons it had and everything like that. It was for, I think it was a book that, like, I can't remember what kind of book it was, or if it was for a model kit or something. I can't 100% recall. And I said, I should do that. I said, that's what I can do. I said, it tells a whole bunch, and it says about all the people and everything. So I did that, and I started thinking the people of the ship.
Mm-hmm.
So, like the captain, I started looking up in the books and seeing what types of crew members are aboard ships and everything. Started looking at the TV shows, and was like, oh, yeah, I like Starbuck, I could have a character like that. So, kind of started looking at the way they shape their characters and just started thinking of my own, well, how about I have my own captain and he's this and that, and, start writing everything down. And then start talking about the ship a bit more and saying how big it is, what it can do, how many weapons it has, where did it come from, and just the different things. And I started writing it out. At first it started off, it wasn't no paragraph or anything like that. It was just kind of like simple stat forms. But I remember when I started getting Transformer toys, I said, there it is right there. They had their stats on the back of them.
Oh, okay,
yeah. And they had a little story, like little small quotes and captions that they had for them. And I said, that's how I can do this. I said, that's giving me the inspiration and, the somewhat ideas to start building more information into the characters and the ships and everything until, I just started having a whole story.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds almost like a technical manual and, like a Bible for a creative universe. How we do that when we're putting together, like if somebody puts together a multiple volume series,
right.
They want to keep track of all of the features, all of the characters, all of the, the specifics that make that up. And it sounds like you just fell into doing that in order to keep track of stuff, and then finally it just blossomed out, right?
Yep. That's exactly
Very
what
cool.
happened.
And so what did you discover about yourself as a storyteller, though? I mean, it's one thing to put together, like you can go in the store now and get a Star Trek, a Starfleet technical manual,
Right.
They're selling those kind of books. How did you make the kind of transition from doing something like that for your universe into actually telling stories?
Well, I was on the borderline of doing like Star Trek's books, of just being technical. But it was like I said, when I did that, when I was making my first book, and I said, I'm talking about all these ships, but who's piloting them? I'm drawing all these mechs, but who's making them? Who's the hero of the story?
Right.
And I had to start writing this stuff out because I said, well, if I'm going to make something for somebody to want to see, they're going to want to know what I'm talking about, just to show, well, I got this drawing, this run robot, and here's some information on it. Okay, well, what else? Because if they like it, they're going to want more. So
right.
What else is there, And I started writing from there, and really the funniest thing was, I still crack jokes on this. The first one I remember I wrote a story about, I felt like I was on dope and dog food when I read it later on. I said, what the heck was I thinking when I wrote this? Who in their right mind? I said, I had to ball it up and throw it away and said, you know what, no, we're going to scratch this one, and I'm going to go back to the drawing board on this. Where I started, just trying to bring the characters and the robots and everything out from just being, 1D to 2D to 3D, as far as trying to be as descriptive as I can, but without going overboard, and just trying to make it simple to where people can understand what it's saying, and hopefully captivating them and capturing the audience and saying, oh, okay, I get that. That's kind of, that's different. Okay, I see what he's talking about. So it's just
right.
so just basic, where it's like, okay, turn the page. Yeah, I'm not liking this. This was a waste of money, or
Well, I mean, I don't think, I've only interviewed one person who told me that they were so good that their instructors in college said they didn't need any instruction or any help with, writing, which I mean, you've got to be a pretty rare individual to just come out, fully formed. Everything's just perfect. So,
right.
It's the process that most people are interested in because, we're influenced by so many things, that people wonder, okay, where do you draw your inspiration from? Blah blah blah. When you got to the point where you started actually filling out characters and doing stories and stuff like that, did you have people around you to give you feedback?
I had my cousins, brothers and sisters. They was around. They would look at my stuff. Some would crack jokes on me. Others would just say, okay, but being family, they might not just been trying to hurt my feelings. But I did have some people who never read it, who never even really knew me, and said, okay, this isn't bad. You might want to do this and that. And I tried to take those critiques, and those influence that they say, that may help, and try to incorporate them. Can't say I did them all right, but
right.
At least, I would try, to take into consideration different things, and because a lot of times, a lot of my stuff would get confused, with people when they look at it, be like, oh, that's a transformer. No, that's my drawing. Oh no, that's from Robotech, ain't it? No, that's a Gundam. No.
But even that I mean, on its surface, that's still flattery. That's still positive, because if it's that good, that ain't bad.
Yeah. I mean, as long as they don't say they don't like it, I'm happy. I just correct them and say that's mine. Not from that story, but I'm glad you don't say it looks like crap.
Okay, so let's move a little bit forward. Hold on, I gotta pull my stuff up here. Now you knew you were working kind of in your RAXON universe, right? That was a name from early on. When did you start quantifying that kind of on a more professional level, more on a potentially commercial level? How old were you, and how did you get to that point where you decided this is something that has commercial potential that I want to really work on and exploit?
It was probably in '94.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I was really getting into it. Like I had mentioned earlier, I was really getting into it, and that's when I was really on board with trying to get everything done for it, and I was trying to ramp up everything. And
when you say ramp up, are we talking about becoming a commercial product?
Yeah, what I was trying to do was at that time I was trying to look into how do I get, printing, copies, publishing,
sure,
different things, and
the real deal.
Yeah, trying to network, because I didn't know anybody who knew anything with it. I went to the comic book store, to ask the guy, and he said, well, what you're going to need is a publisher, a printer, you're going to probably get you some artists. And when he was saying all this stuff, I started getting a little discouraged, because when he was talking, it started being like Charlie Brown. You hear that, wah, wah, wah. But I was hearing change, because I'm like, this is going to cost me. And then he said, it's going to cost you a couple $1,000, to make you a comic book. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's just a comic book. I said, well, what about a cartoon? He was like, oh, yeah, you're talking about probably $1 million. And I'm like, well, there goes that dream. But,
you didn't stop. See,
no,
you didn't stop. So, and then, next time when you're that young and you don't know anything, talk to more than one person, okay? That's my advice to you.
Yeah, definitely true.
Yeah. But again, it didn't stop you, because look where you are now,
True.
So, even after you saw those as, some fairly high financial hurdles, you kept going. And was that same push like, I'm not going to let something like some simple money stop me, or what?
Well, with that one slowed me down a lot, a lot more than the business one. Because
that's frightening. When somebody talks about millions of dollars, that is frightening.
Yeah, that scared the crap out of me, And I said, oh well, You know, being from Detroit, you know, black guy, I'm like, where the heck am I gonna get $1 million and I don't even have $1,000 at this time? I was like, I didn't even have 300. So it was like, you know, how's this gonna happen? But you know, naturally didn't know anything about sponsors, advertising, you know, just the whole multitude of everything else that could be available to you.
Right.
Just you trying to figure out how you're going to get $1 million.
Sure.
You know, so that was the big thing that threw me off, and you know, put the fear into me. But I didn't let it 100% stop me. You know, it slowed me down. It was a little discouraging, but
right.
It didn't. I said, okay, well, there's got to be another way, you know. And so I said, well, even if I make my own drawings, I said, well, my mom works, and she works as a clerical, so maybe if I can get her to make copies, I can make my own books, you know, and just staple them. And I did that. And I sold maybe three to five of them. I think she set it up with her friends that just bought them. But I had made some. And, you know, sold them that way. And I think that was my first, pretty sure that was my first entrepreneurial experience with it, with, you know, getting my stuff out there. And that book just had like a few ships that I had colored and that I hand wrote the names of them, and a few facts that I had put into it, and I hand wrote them. They wasn't back to back. They were just like, you know, one page, you know, with colored markers that, you know, had a lot of mistakes in them, but I was trying. So, you know, and I didn't sell them for much. I think I just sold them for like $1. But it was still a fun thing to do because even though I didn't have orders for them or anything like that, well, I had a few, but it was just fun to do it, you know, the experience of it. And I said, you know, this is something I like. You know, it's the feeling that somebody wants to see my product. And so that encouraged me. But like I said, you know, things came up and slowed me down here and there. And then I, you know, at one point I was ready to I got frustrated with it all, and I stopped for a few years. I took a few-year hiatus on it.
Well, sometimes, you know, you need that to kind of regain some perspective, and also to get, I mean, that whole thing about, you know, banging your head against the wall just because it feels good when you stop, that's not really a good motivator, you know?
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so you take that time off. What were you doing?
Pretty much working, living, having fun, drinking,
paying the bills,
you know, hanging out with my family and everything. Just, you know, just enjoying life. Blowing through money like a hot knife through butter, but you know, that's a whole other story. But
well,
you know,
I mean, you know, when you're young, the whole thing about youth, they say, what is it? What do they say? Youth is wasted on the young. But, I mean, there's a whole lot of things you learn about life, you know, just doing that sort of thing. And then did it help you? I mean, obviously you're getting more experience in life. Did it give you better perspective?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Because when I came back to it, it was a more sense of reality.
Okay.
You know, okay.
More grounded.
Right. I had to go back to the basics of what my father told me, you know, with the model kit. If you're serious about doing this, then do it. You know, don't play around with it. Don't waste your time and money with it if it's something you're just going to do if you want to do it for a hobby and you want to spend your money on it, knock yourself out. But if you want to be serious with it and you really want somebody to take you serious with it, then dedicate the time and effort you need to get it done. You know, otherwise you're just blowing smoke up your own butt.
Right.
And I said, well, yeah, okay. And so in 7, I had started cranking up my gears again, you know, and I was like, okay, these revamps are pretty dang good. You know, I'm doing way better. I'm starting to pick up a different style, going a little different direction. Then the tragedy happens, our house burns down. So lose a lot of stuff, but 98 comes around, rebirth. It's like I started salvaging through everything that I had lost and what I had left.
Right.
And I started rebuilding. And that was the real big point of the rebuild of RAXON, you know, because I said, you know what, not only am I going to rebuild this, I'm going to rebuild it better. And I'm going to go further with it than I had anticipated, to where I started drawing human characters. They wasn't the best looking, but I took a shot at it, and I started cleaning them up a little bit here and there, and I said, well, at the very least, I got a basis. I got a foundation, you know, and it really, from that point, like my stories, now that I had a face that I was able to draw to see, I was able to write out my stories a lot better, you know,
right.
That I'm starting to see my own foundations and building it so that I can see and put a face to what I'm thinking and saying, you know what, let me match this up with this character. And as I started thinking about what kind of characters would I like to see, conversations that they have, things that they do, you know, just a whole multitude of things that I had never even thought about doing before, even till today. You know,
you mean in terms of story development?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And with the RAXON, I became so engulfed in it to where I didn't even want to do anything else. It was like at one point I was doing just RAXON stuff, just it, you know. And because it was like that universe was just coming together, you know, around me. And I'm drawing like a bat out of hell. You know, I'm drawing mechs left and right. I'm drawing fleets of ships, you know, fighters, tanks, bases, characters. I started writing characters, writing stats for characters and profiles for characters that I didn't even draw at that time, to where I had so many profiles for characters and everything, I had to catch up with the drawing. You know, so I started going back, and I did it with like so many of my alien characters and ships. I started drawing those like crazy, and I said, I got to draw these alien characters. Next thing I know, I'm drawing them like poof, they're just coming out of the woodworks, you know. And it was fun. You know, that was the thing that I had missed, was having it fun. And at that point, I said, you know, well, now I need to step it up a little bit more. I need to get out of the markers and try to see. And it was one point this is when I started really getting online and into the internet and everything. And it was one guy named David White, and I saw his drawings, and he had a book called Mechazone, and he drew mechs. And I remember I bought it, and I was like, okay, cool. You know, this guy his drawings are kind of similar to what I draw. You know, we're on a similar level. We're not the exact, but he draws a little more technical. But I took pointers from his stuff, and it was one year I reached out to him, and I said, you know, because I saw he was doing his stuff that was looking like box covers and everything, the way the colors and everything. And I said, could you color one of my mechs, you know? And he said, yeah, I can do it. And I said, well, how much? He was like, $75. And I was kind of like, wow, okay. And I said, okay, you know, how do we do it? You know, he told me about PayPal and everything. I'm new to all of this. And he sends me a contract. And I'm like, a contract? And that's when a whole nother level kicks in that I start to learn. It was basically his protection clause. I'm doing this for you and all of this and that. And it was a nice, detailed, laid-out contract that I even had, at that time, my parents look at it and say, is this, you know, something? I had to sign it and send it back to him.
Right.
And once he did that, you know, sent the payment, and he was giving me updates of the drawings. And then when he mailed the drawing to me, a hard, like on a kind of like a hard paper with fully colored, but he was sending the pictures to me online, and they were just like blowing my mind. And he sent me a disc that had the drawing on it in different size formats. And I said, okay, $35. Okay, I need another one done. You know? And when I saw that first one, it was like, okay, I got to have them all drawn. I got to have them all colored like this, because I said I don't want to have a book where they're black and white, not shaded, or colored with markers. I said, this is the direction I got to go now.
Right.
So at that point on, I said I was spoiled. And I said I got to have all my drawings colored in this fashion, in this digital fashion. And so I got too many drawings for him, because he was like, well, how many drawings are you talking about? I said, I got about 120. And he was like, okay, I can't do all of those. So, and mind you, I was still drawing. So he was like, I can't do all those. He's like, I'll probably do 10 of them for you. And I said, okay. And so, you know, I'm like, dang, okay, that's it. So after he did his 10, you know, I I started entering into different contests online. You know, I'm blowing people out of the water. I'm like, wow. But I'm always giving the credit saying he colored it, you know, because, I drew it, but he colored it. So I can't just say, yeah, this is me, I did all this. You know, nope. So because somebody say, hey, can you color one of mine? No, I can't. Not like that.
Right.
So,
well, it sounds like at the same time you're learning two things. I mean, obviously you're learning a little bit more about the business of doing business side of being a creative. And when you saw what he was able to do, did it encourage you to try to increase the depth of your creativity, you know, to maybe be able to color and do things like that on your own? Or were you still at the stage of, well, you know, I do what I do, these people do what they do, and they do it better, so let's stick with that? I mean, how did that work out for you?
Yeah. It kind of went a little bit in both ways.
Okay.
I did step up my game a bit more with drawing. Like, I started putting a lot more little details here and there into things that where normally I never would have. Even though the other flip side was I wasn't ready to embrace the digital coloring, because I still enjoyed, you know, the hands-on of markers, and I still felt I still had a little ways to go to perfect that as well. Because I say, you know, I didn't want to just jump right out of one into the other one, and I didn't have the computer software nor the computers to really handle anything at that time either. So I took, you know, the pointers of the business side of understanding the contracts and recreating them, you know, and in my work, I became active in my union, and to the point where I became the president of my union local, and that's what we began to do. That's all we were dealing with is union contracts with the city, you know, contract negotiations, everything like that. So understanding contracts and reading them and you know, doing the whole nine with them became a thing that was something that I just said I got to do, you know. So understanding contracts, writing them, helping people with them, letting people know if you're going to deal with this, you might want to have a contract if you don't have a lawyer or attorneys and everything like that. Here's something that you can have that can help you and protect you as well, so that if you got to go on Judge Mathis or somewhere, you know, you got some protection that you signed off on it. So, like, I know I helped Ty with a contract with his stuff, and, you know, I said I want to make sure that you're safe, as well as letting the person know who's going to be doing any work for you, that you're a safe person to deal with because you're doing this. I said I love gentlemen's agreements, but everybody won't always do one, you know, because when you're dealing with people online, you got some people that'll say, yeah, sure, I'll take it. Like me, I'm an easygoing guy, you know. Somebody talks to me, it's okay. You know, I'm not trying to do everything for money, but, you know, you got some people that's like, I got to have cash because I'm not going to be wasting my time, you know. So it's the different kinds of people, you know, because some people do it, they do it as this is their job, you know. Whereas me, I got a 9 to 5. So I can understand. I have to play devil's advocate sometimes when I come across some commissioners. And, you know, so it was at one point I did a few commissions for some people who said they wanted some real technical drawn mechs. And, you know, I said, okay, well, here's my contract. And some of them got a little discouraged because they were like, I never dealt with anybody with a contract. I said, well, now you have. So do you want to do a deal or not? And, you know, two said no, because I guess either they was, my thing I started learning was, if you don't want to do it, if you don't want anything in writing, you're not serious, or you're new to this and you're just not sure. I learned, you know, if you're willing to put it in writing, this is something that's going to protect you as well as me. I'm going to sign it. You're going to sign it. We're both in agreement to it. You got emails. You got everything to trace me. So the money is going to, you know, if I'm screwing you, you're going to get your money back, especially with PayPal. So try to let everybody know there's safety nets out there. So with the business point, you know, it became a pretty good thing. And with the technical point, as far as the drawing, you know, it really helped me because I started going advanced a lot more.
Sure.
And, doing a lot more, like I said, details here and there into things that I never would have done before, where I was drawing shapes inside of shapes, and then drawing stuff big and shrinking it down, and drawing it big, shrinking it down, which was something I used to do, but not as good. And so it began to develop into another portion, another aspect that I started to have fun with. So, it's just been an explosion of just things happening all over the place. And I've just been scatterbrained, with just amazement is, and like say when you got people like Tyrone, and then another friend of mine who's actually the one who's handling my 3D printing is Damone Amerson, and you got to have him on here one of these times. That guy, I had to make him a partner in the RAXON verse, and because when he saw my stuff, he was like, I'm in, and I said, okay. I couldn't even argue.
Very cool. Yeah.
And he's keeping me on the straight and narrow. Like both of those two are like the ones that have kept me from just throwing in the towel.
Right.
As far as the males in my life, is the artists that have been the ones that have said, man, don't stop. You've made it this far. Look at what you've created. Why would you throw all that away now? It's like if you got Stan Lee to the point where he can't read comics anymore, but it's not saying he's stopping doing anything. At his age, you're not even near that age yet. What is your excuse for stopping? I said, well, yeah, you got a point there. So, I said, well, okay, just got to focus on how to get it really done the right way. Get everything, streamlined on the right path to where it's marketable, versus just, okay, I'm doing it, but I'm doing it wrong, but I'm doing it,
Well, it's a difference between a business versus a hobby.
Right.
Hang on a second. You're listening to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of the blacksciencefictionsociety.com website. This is the January 15th edition. I think this might be the second show of the new year. A lot of things going on in life, a lot of things going on in the country. Don't get me started about politics, but tonight we're talking to, Thomas Johnson. He's an artist. He's actually now he's becoming, one of the things I want to talk to you about is how you, A, got into the whole 3D printing aspect, and B, what do you think is the potential for 3D printing in terms of your creative universe and the commercial viability of your products?
Okay. Now, don't let me babble too much. Let me start with that first one.
Oh, no, dude, we got a 2-hour show. I am always happy when I get me a babbler because, I can take a nap, I can run in the kitchen, get something to eat. I can't do the dishes anymore because Jarvis kept getting on my ass about that, making all them dishwashing noises. But seriously, though, 3D printing is huge. It's supposed to be the panacea for everybody. Everybody's talking about 3D printing. It's kind of like what everybody said about the Internet in 1992. The Internet's going to be this. It's going to change life and how we do business. And, you got to be a dumb-ass mofo to want to buy 50 pounds of dog food over the Internet and pay as much for the shipping as you do for the dog food instead of just run to the store.
Right.
So some things are stupid, some things are not. 3D printing has proven itself to be a great tool in medicine. Like I think I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned it when we started the show, but we've got the 3D printing of ears, noses, cartilage parts, heart valves, vaginal tissue. I mean, pretty soon they'll be 3D printing Johnsons. Yeah, I said it. Somebody had to say it. So, but the thing is, it's such a huge thing. Over in Africa, they are 3D printing houses. Foamed concrete houses. They 3D printed cars here at McCormick Place, right when everybody was watching during the car show. 3D printing has a lot of potential. I think the biggest potential for 3D printing is, let's say you have an iPhone, you crack or any kind of phone, you crack the screen, or you crack the back, or you drop it and chip then you log on to your telephone manufacturer's website, You pay $19.95. They send you a digital file. You take that on a flash drive to, Home Depot or some of these places, or Staples, where they're doing 3D printing for you. You give them the file, they print what you want, and 20 minutes later you've got your new part. I think that's where a huge amount of commerce is going to be done. Now for you, you're translating your art directly into final product, all but the painting part, final product figures, right? Is that what you're doing mostly, for both the mechs and the ships?
Yep.
Okay, so let's start out from the beginning. Where did you start to apply this new technology to what you're doing?
Well, let me be totally honest with you. How I found out about the 3D printing, it was on a DeviantArt, and I was on there one day, and I saw this one guy. He had some mechs that he said he made himself, because I was like, they don't recognize it, And he had this one picture at the bottom that said Ultimaker 2. And
okay.
I started reading his comments, and people were saying, "You made this?" And he's like, "Yeah, I bought the Ultimaker 2 3D printer." And the first thing went through my mind was, "Wait a minute, you made your own figure? You didn't make it out of clay. You didn't do it out of you didn't sculpt
wax
it
or whatever." Yeah, all the traditional mediums from before.
Exactly. And I'm like, and he had the link for it. So I clicked the link, and I'm looking, and I said, "Oh my God." 3D printers, and my cousin used to tell me about it. He's like, "Man, 3D printers, they're coming." He's like, "Well, you can just make your own stuff, make your own figures and everything." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." But to me, I'm space cadet at that time. I'm not even thinking about it. So it was like it hit like, going from regular printer to a color printer. Like,
right.
Whoa, you can see your stuff in color now, And
or dot matrix to a laser printer.
Yeah. So, it was like, wow. And so I started looking at his stuff, and I said, this is ridiculously detailed. And so I started looking into the 3D printers, and the one guy that I mentioned earlier, Dave White, next thing I know, he's got one, and he's making his own mechs. He's
right.
making miniature ones. And I'm like, oh, hell no. And I'm looking at the prices of these 3D printers, and I'm like, that's it? You can do all of that with that? And I said, he's making posable ones? I'm like, heck no. So, here's where the bomb hit me. I started looking into them. I started YouTubing videos and everything, and I'm like, wow. Then I remembered one thing. I am horrible with computers. So the software, I started looking into that, and I'm like, oh, God. Yeah, I'm going to have to learn how to use this. So it was like I started playing. I downloaded Blender.
Okay.
And I downloaded it. And, yeah. So Blender is on my computer, and, it's still there. So fast forward, I'm telling everybody about this printer. I'm chatting with a few people on Black Science Fiction Society's inbox, talking about 3D printers and everything, and I'm telling them, yeah, I'm going to get that Ultimaker 2. And I'm saying to myself, I'm not sure how I'm going to use it, but I'm going to figure it out. If I buy it, I'm going to learn it.
Right.
So, because I'm picturing everything that I can do with it. So fast forward a little further, I come across Damone Amerson, who was a nephew of a friend of mine that worked with me named Cornell Amerson. And he was like, Cornell was saying, yeah, my nephew knows how to do all that 3D stuff and everything. And I'm like, really? And so I said, you think he could 3D one of my ships? He was like, yeah, I'm sure he can. So fast forward a little bit, I kind of reached out to Damone, was hesitant for a while. Then I went on ahead and reached out to him, and I said, want to know how much would you charge to 3D one of my ships or everything like that? And he told me his price, and I said, okay, well, that's not bad. I said, considering that if all I got to do is pretty much just hit print on my 3D printer, then I got somebody who can do that. It's similar to how I was commissioning people for my drawings to do the digital coloring. So I'm like, okay, yeah, this might be something that can work. So we started chatting, and he says, what do you want them for? Are you going to be 3D printing? I said, yeah. He's like, well, what 3D printer are you going to be using? I showed him the Ultimaker. He was like, wow, okay, all right. And then he's like, can I see some more of your drawings? And next thing I know, I got a partner. And he was saying, what I didn't know was he was doing research on other 3D printers.
Right.
It was like saying, this is like the perfect time for indie because, you ain't got to deal with the big box store products and everything where so many people are selling online now. And they're making their own stores. Like the guy, David White. He's printing up his own figures and selling his own stuff, and they're selling like, wildfire. And I'm saying, okay, I definitely can get into this. And the prices of the printers started going down, because newer ones are coming out, they're getting faster. You're getting less problems with them, because they're perfecting the technology. So it's definitely something that's been embraced. And even to fast forward to when we got it, I told Damone, I said, we're going to have that 3D printer before the end of 2015. Got it, gave it to him. I said, make me some ships. Little did I know, he was like, okay, I'm going to do some practice stuff because I got to learn software and everything. He was already practicing the software before we got the printer. So when he got the printer, he printed out one ship for me, which I'm still holding in my hand right now.
How quick did he do it? Did he turn it around?
Actually, he said it only took him about 3 hours. Man,
that's great.
And what I didn't know was that he was actually building my big ship, my Renaissance ship. He made it a foot long, and it's in maybe 8 or 9 pieces that he made it to where the pieces would peg together to where they might need a little bit of sanding, and then you glue them together.
Sure.
He showed me the picture of it a few days ago. I posted it on Facebook, and I was like, my jaw dropped. I said, I'll be over there this weekend to pick up my ship. and he tells me, he's like, I want to make one that's 22 inches with way more detail. And I said, okay, I demand you make me one as well, because if you want that for your centerpiece, I got to have one too. So he said he's going to be working on that, and and so we were even talking like what some people are doing too, and what we even talked about doing was farming, and that's when you have people who have more than one 3D printer. So one guy I saw, he had 10 of them, and you can print multiple things with it. So if you got 10 3D printers, imagine what you can do. How much stuff can you crank out? Now your electric bill is going to go up, but the stuff that you can make can be just ridiculous. I mean, it's just so many different things, and if you have the time to do it,
absolutely.
It's even
and a word of a technical word of warning to everybody. This is very, very much like inkjet technology, in that they will give you the printer at cost or close to cost, because they do know that they're going to make up money on the consumables, the composites that actually make up that they print up the whatever figure with. But it's so cool. I mean, even doing the YouTube videos showing people how you're printing stuff. I mean, all of that is really compelling, for a to actually take a product like anything two-dimensional and being able to render it three-dimensional and to give it to a kid or somebody else, as a collectible or what have you. I mean, one of the things that I want to see Jarvis do is I want to see him do the Earth Squadron coin. We've got a logoed coin, and to be able to do that, because I think that there's some fundraising possibilities in that kind of technology. I think there's a lot of cool stuff, because here's the thing, it costs money to do everything.
Right.
But if you can give something that's value added for your creative universe, there's no substitute for that. So I can't wait to see this stuff that you print. Somebody popped the for those of you who are on Facebook, you can pop the link to see the picture of the ship, and it is amazing. I guess the box is, oh man, it is amazing. I just clicked on it. And so now you're seeing the potential. You're seeing all of these really cool things. Basically, if you wanted to do a fundraiser now, and certain level people donated X amount of dollars, and for their X amount of dollars, they got a ship out of the universe, out of your stories. There's huge potential there to kick up, what you could do in crowdsourcing. You know what I mean?
Yep. And that's what I'm trying to learn is how to try to get more exposure so that people will know it's there. You know, learning that aspect. And, you know, like I said, taking a page from Tyrone, what he said at last week's is, you know, putting out more stuff for people to see, you know, and get more active, because I haven't been active as much as I should have been. But I said, as I'm seeing him get active, it's inspiring me to be more active. And I said, you know what, let me start putting it out there so I don't be just waiting till the last minute and be like, I got all this stuff. They're like, yeah, I wish you would have told us sooner. So I want to start, you know, getting everything out there for people to see. And that's definitely a avenue that we were talking about doing, is being able to show some different things, crowdfund, so that it makes it a lot easier and it gives us flexibility as far as time and money. Sure. Because, you know, the filaments don't cost that much, but it's the timing of everything.
Yeah, and it kicks up the interest level. Well, if you need any help on your marketing, I know a Japanegro who could give you a lot of help. We'll talk later.
I definitely will.
No, I'm serious, because making money is not that hard to do. And people go, oh, you know, they think I'm crazy. But, you know, exciting people's minds is just a matter of how you tell them the story. I mean, everything, all marketing is storytelling. And people have to think in those terms. How do you tell a compelling story to make people want to either participate in your universe, help you out? You know, how do you get them excited? You're sitting so well because you've got such great visuals already. You've been doing this most of your life. So the only thing that you have to do is figure out a way to share your vision with other people in a way that's compelling enough that they want to make it happen. Right. And I think that is way cool. That is way cool. So, okay, so now you bought the printer. You gave it to what's his name? Sorry, I don't remember names. I'm old, man. And so it sounds very, very much like this is a great collaboration between you two.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's even drawing some of my comic books.
Oh, see, that's great. And think about that. You know, when you put all of those mediums together, what you do is you give readers, whatever, you know, people who are interested in the universe, those who want to get a buy-in, whatever, you give them so many different ways to participate in your creative universe. And that's, I mean, what kind of feedback have you gotten on just where you are now, just to this point? The funny thing is, I've gotten people that posted on the pictures, saying, you know, giving good feedback. I've had 2 or 3 people ask me if I was doing commissions. Unfortunately, 2 of them wanted commissions of stuff that I just was like, I don't do those kind of commissions. But I can tell you who probably do. You know, when they wanted to. Well, no, that's good. I mean,
stuff,
you know,
it was cool. Yeah. It was nice to be asked.
Right, and the fact that you didn't turn them down, but you could help them, you know, it in no way, hopefully in no way puts them off so that they forget who you are, you know? Right. And so people are asking you to kind of help them out. See, it almost sounds like you've created a little niche industry within your creative universe where people want you to do things for themselves. Is that what I'm getting from you?
Yeah, a bit, yeah. Because I've been drawing, like for Tyrone, I'm drawing mechs for his stories, which I've been having a blast doing. I've been trying to get them done. I told him I've been promising him I'm going to have them finished so he can get his comics underway, drawing ships, you know, for some of his stories. He's going to kill me because I can't. He has so many fascinating stories. I'll be losing track when he be just typing. I'll be like, okay, Tyrone, let me try to understand which one did you want me to do this one for. Okay, just give me a list of ships you want. Give me a list of mechs you want. Let me get started. You name them, color them. I'll just be happy just to see them.
Well, I mean, and he was on the show last time. Yes. And he's doing some incredibly creative things. I've known him for a while. I really admire and respect his art. And for you to be able to helping him out to turn that into something 3D is just, it blows my mind, you know, and it makes me think, you know, I'm an author predominantly, you know, and a screenwriter. So how does 3D printing relate to me? Well, eventually, I'm pretty sure, based upon what people tell me, they may be turning, Dark Side into either a miniseries or movies. Well, when you do that, then you have product tie-ins, you have all kinds of things, and doing one-offs to figure out if this is good looking, if this works out fine. I mean, 3D printing has so much potential. And as you said, the thing that's making it more and more attractive is the fact that the price is coming down very quickly. You're getting much, much better rendering for much, much cheaper money than a year ago, and so much less than 2 years ago. So it's becoming, it already is accessible for the fairly average consumer. Where do you, other than you being able to render all of your figures and things like that, where else do you see this working? Because, here's one of the things that just occurred to me. Suppose you wanted to take your stories and make motion comics out of them, but you can make motion comics using the 3D figures.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be some badass things. I almost said that S word. No, we try to keep it PG-13, but I'm stupid. I ain't got the sense of a houseplant. But seriously, there's so much potential for combining media now. All of a sudden you've got your mechs, and let's say you get to the point where you're doing the 3D rendering where you can move, make the legs and the arms movable. So now you've got, motion capture or even, what is that thing that they did with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? Oh, stop motion kind of stuff.
Right. Well, I can let you know in a little secret a little something that's coming down the line.
Well, as long as you're not revealing anything proprietary that you're going to be mad about, because the 8 or 9 people who listen to this show, they're going to hear that.
Well, I'm hoping that if people are liking my stuff, that what the plans are that's going to be coming out for the RAXON verse is that we are planning on doing. We have talked about doing web comics.
Okay.
But we are talking about being in the works, and we may start it this year as far as doing an anime for it.
Sure.
So that's something that's definitely in the works because Damone is saying, because we're planning on getting this motion capture system.
Right.
And it's pretty affordable. It's pretty cheap, and it basically does everything that you see that's in the movies when they're doing, like, for the Marvels, how they do the Hulk and everything like that, how you have all these different cameras and all these different sensors. Basically, it's a suit that you put on, and you can use it in your own front room. Doesn't need all of these different things, and it works with a lot of software and even the gaming engines, like Unreal. I can't think of all these other ones, but it's a lot of it's compatible with a lot of different things, and it's called if I'm not mistaken, the mocap system.
Right.
And we're talking about getting that, and that would help as far as doing the anime that we're talking about doing, and we're hoping to have a trailer for it sometime this year. It may be by the time we hit the cons this year. The cons that we're planning on doing, which is going to be MechaCon, is one that we're doing from Maya Crown Williams. We're also planning on trying to get to YumaCon, which is a real big one here in Michigan. And then another one called FantasticCon, which I wanted to be at last year because Jonathan Frakes, William Riker was there, and I wanted to catch him, to see what's been going on. I always liked his voice, but just to see how these cons are done, because like pretty much last year, 2015 and 2014 were like my first experiences with them. I always wanted to do them, but I never knew where they were until finally I saw somebody posted and shared to me, and I said, well, why didn't you let me know this stuff sooner? So we said we want to try to get stuff ready to kind of like a release party at these cons this year to get out there.
To do a full-on rollout. Yeah. Okay. Hey, if you come down to C2E2 next spring, we got one coming up, but that would be short notice. But if you come down next spring, I'll take you someplace nice for lunch. Okay. No, I'm serious, because I want to meet as many black creatives before I die as I can. Definitely. For the most part, they we are such an engaging and really cool group, and with very few exceptions, I'm not going to mention Samuel Delaney's name, but with very few exceptions, It's just, it opens up more of a creative world for me. And to see you, and we're really at the ground floor of you busting out not only your creative universe, but exploiting new mediums in which to do it. You know, that's pretty cool, and people should keep an eye out on that. So, you know, all of the links, we pop the links in the chat room. I guess keep track of you. You do most of your stuff on Facebook. Is that where most of your go ahead.
Yeah, I originally started off just posted a lot of it on DeviantArt, and I just added my DeviantArt page link to my RAXON page on Facebook, so people can see more artwork there as well if they click that. And I'm in the process of getting the website, the RAXON website, redid, because we want to have it to where it has a lot of content and where it's going to have the showing of everything that's coming down the line, like from the comic books to any toys that we're going to be cranking out to any web comics, videos, everything.
You think you might want to put your name someplace on the front page of this website?
Yeah. Yeah. Learning everything.
Nobody knows who you are, man.
Right.
And see, the thing is, you know, I'm excited for what you're doing because it's creative, and you've got so many constituents to it. Plus, you got a number of people who are in on it. So it's not like you having to go it alone. It's tough. You know, for an entrepreneur, for a creative, we got that 80-20 rule where 80% is doing business and 20% is creative. You have spread the manifestation of your creativity out to a decent team, you know? Yeah. And that's outstanding. And you should feel good about that. And it's easy to tell that you're excited about what you're doing. That helps a lot too, because there are some people, like you said, you went through a period where you were kind of beat down on the whole thing and you wanted to step back.
Yeah.
And hey, it just happens. You know, it's tough out there. The toughest thing in the world is to figure out how to raise your voice loud enough for others to hear you, to raise your visibility high enough so new people can find you. And those are the challenges that all the creatives face. All creatives face those challenges. So, I mean, the fact that you've got a number of really cool hooks that are not only in the works, but that you're really starting to exploit is exciting. And the fact that you're a member of BSFS helps, because what a creative universe there. I mean, you run into all kinds of people who do all kinds of cool things, and the networking aspect of having like creatives together, you know, for those who can share and are willing to mentor or help others so that everybody doesn't have to recreate the wheel is a cool-ass thing.
Right.
I really want to watch, and of course, selfishly, I want to watch the whole 3D printing aspect of doing creative things, you know, partly because I am building that 3D printer manufacturing plant. And eventually I'm going to get a 3D printer in my house, but even as I sit here, I don't know why, because I can't draw worth a damn. Like I said, I still do Mickey Mouse hands. You know, and I don't do technical drawing, so it would be of limited. But the cool thing is, okay, so what if I call you up and say, dude, I love that ship. How can I get one of those? And you might be nice enough to say, well, you got a 3D printer? I'll say, yeah. All right, here, I'll send you the files so you can print one, rather than me spending $100 to get one. I mean, those sorts of things. And I'm not just hinting around. I really want you to give me the files and not charge me for them. But you see how you could generate excitement. What if a marketing person said, hey, we want to do a write-up of the RAXON universe, and do you have anything with your press kit? You say, yeah, I'll send you the press kit, and I'll send you the 3D file so that you could print up the cool shit. I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah.
This is how you get people excited, because when you give them some free stuff, all of a sudden they lose their minds, and that works to your benefit. So I'm really excited about the whole thing. Now, the last part, let's talk about this big ass book on your website. Okay. So, well, you've got RAXON Universal Dominion Book 1 there.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about what's in the book, and then explain how, what's going to be the necessity and the content of, like, Book 2. What's in Book 1 specifically?
Okay. Book 1 tells how everything began. It starts off with telling the situation that's going on in the RAXON universe.
Okay.
For those that don't know,
it's an origin story.
It's an origin story, and it
okay,
also
cool.
it talks about the origin of how humanity became exposed to this creature, because the RAXON is a creature, and how it kind of gives a synopsis of how we basically were on the verge. We had stopped our own wars, but actually we were preparing for our wars with ourselves again, and actually almost a war to where humanity probably would have annihilated itself until we came in contact with an alien race that was being pursued by another one. And for some reason, we allowed them to come here, and we kind of got into an interstellar war at that point. And then fast forward years later, they come back. But at this time, we already began assimilating technology from the aliens that stayed here, that were that were on the run. But only to find out that what they were running from were actually their own kind to an extent, like their cousin races. And it began in Book 1. It kind of Book 1 more so talks about the nuances of the human race, but we give highlights of what's going on with the alien races. Because with the human races, we're colonized on many worlds, and each world has its own division, its own government and everything, but it's all under one. So it's like Eden, the Elite Defense Earth Network, is the main governing body over all of the other divisions, like Alpha Turbine, Armored Tide, Onyx Aquafina. You have all these different ones, but in each one it has a story that tells you how they work, their nuances and everything like that. Of talking about
what the relationships are, the pros, the cons, who's with who does what are the major areas of conflict. So it's like it seems like it's setting the stage really well for the whole series. Right.
And the way I planned on having it was, like, Book 1 is going to have probably over 200 pages, because it has the ships, it has the characters, and it tells, like, the ships is showing their files, the stats, like all their weapon systems, everything like that. Characters, same things, what division they're with, their body size, and their own personal profiles of things that they were key characters in. And a lot of my characters, some of my characters are strong women. I always love strong women as far as my characters, but I have linchpins that I've put into my stories so that when I go into the comic books, the linchpins are there. It's like you see a consistency of main characters that are always appearing in the comic books. So it's like the main book is kind of like more, like I was saying, like a source book that's going to tell, the foundation of everything. And like you see the ships and everything like that, and you see the firepower that they pack and everything like that. And that's the book I said I want to go back to basics on and give a little bit more color and a little more detail into it, so it's just not a picture of a ship and the stats, no stars behind it or nothing like that.
Right.
So I'm going back and filling in those things, and I got Ty going and helping me out with a lot of the editing of it as well, because my writing, I might have wrote out a lot of stuff, but it's got to be edited, So he's helping me a lot with that. So that's a book that I plan on releasing along with my comic books this year. And like I said, the linchpins are those main characters that'll be featured in those comics that people will see as each comic comes out, And I want to have bundle packages as well. But like the thick books is I have so far, what I have laid out is 4 of them. Book 2 is going to be like pretty much the aliens. It's going to show like their star system, all their ships, all their mechs, all their technology, all their characters, the main characters.
Well, it's a technical compendium, a technical manual of your creative universe. I mean, there is nothing wrong. I mean, that's how people get a buy-in. You know, when somebody picks up that technical universe and starts reading about the other races and where some have, and then they find where such and such a race appears in the book, or excuse me, appears in the comics, and you know, if you do the animated series and things like that. I have a friend who's doing something like this, and I know he's not going to be upset that I mention this, but one of the things that he's doing with his manual is he's also building up an up-to-date resource online. So it's almost like a visual wiki of where his creative universe is going. And one of the things that he's doing in the books and his comics, because he's doing both just like you, is he's putting in those QR codes. So if somebody just hits the QR code, they go right to the page on the website where all of that stuff is, you know. And when you draw it all together like that, that's a lot of traffic. That's a lot of good traffic with people checking out your stuff. So, you know, there's an idea. You don't have to use it, but, you know, we're doing this for his creative universe because one thing that you can do on a website that you can't do in a book is change something on the fly.
True.
You know, I got 28 typos in my first book, and I'm thinking, gee, do I want to spend $600 and change all those? I don't know, you know.
Right.
So, yeah, but that's pretty cool. I like the cover. Again, your artwork. Hello?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, is this your artwork on book the cover on book one?
Yeah, I had what happened with that that logo.
Yes.
I had input on it. The one that I originally designed looked way different. So I had found one guy named I could never pronounce his name, Johannes Permati, and I kind of drew some stuff out, and he said, okay, let me see if I can add a little bit of creativity to it, because he wanted to do it a little different.
Right.
And when he did that, I said, there it is.
There you go. Isn't it great when your vision, someone sees your vision and puts it out there, and you go, that's exactly what I was thinking of?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you talk about this as the big book, and then you've got the comic tie-ins and whatever else that comes up later. You know, whether it's animation or whatever. Where would the second book be going? Just more of the like newly discovered or newly written aspects that weren't in the first one, or how are you going to plan that out? And do you even have an idea right now what your arc is going to be? How many volumes do you think you'll have?
Oh yeah, I already have them. When I say I've been working on the RAXON story for years, like I say, this goes back to the 90s. This is stuff that's been written out already. It's basically just going back and making subtle changes here and there. Like I say, all the alien ships. Like, really, I already have all 4 the thick books that I plan on having.
Wow.
Are basically broken up into chapters. Originally, it was 12 books, 12 different books. They were all, what I said I'd do is, instead of making them 12, I'll just make each book, I'll just put 3 chapters in each book into a thick book. And I said, in this way, I can have more content in one book versus trying to do all this extra stuff and fill in stuff into the smaller books. And this way, it can tell a lot more, and it breaks it down into story arcs, because each chapter takes place over years. So this goes all the way up to the 4th book, because the story has a beginning and an end, in the RAXON universe dominion. Then I actually have it to where it goes into the RAXON Wars, which is a whole nother story arc. And a lot of some of the mechs that people are seeing aren't in RAXON Universal Dominion. They're actually from the RAXON Wars, which comes way later. And mechs and ships and all of that and stats and everything I already have. So it's like, basically, it's just formatting right now is what I've been just doing for these books. It's just getting everything formatted. The chapters have already been written. It's just adding in just more content, just more filler content, and more characters that I might have had the stats for, just now bringing them out and putting them to paper so that people can see everything. So like book 2, I'm already formatting it. I already have the template for it and everything like that, all the drawings, and it's just adding. It's already close to 200 pages in that book. So when book 1 launches, by the time book 1 launches, book 2 will be pretty much almost right behind it, as well as book 3 and 4.
Very cool. And how do you feel about? I mean, you started off as an artist, but now you've gotten to the point where you have to be a storyteller. How do you feel about your storytelling? Are you about where you want to be? Are you still learning the art? I mean, obviously, as creatives, hopefully we're learning for the rest of our lives. It's not like we all of a sudden stop and say, "Shoot, I know everything now." But how do you feel about that aspect of storytelling?
Definitely still learning. Just trying to find, just trying to make sure I don't want to go. Like, I like to keep stuff kind of like a basic, but just like the old school Star Wars, capture your imagination kind of thing, but not so detailed to where every single aspect has to be answered. Like you look at some sci-fi and it's like they got to just tell you the answer to every single thing in it. With certain things, I like to just be like, it's there, it happened, they did it. Like people say, how can they build a Death Star? How long did that take? Why are you worried about it? It's there. It took a long time. It wasn't done overnight. I don't want to know what one of the plans of it. It's there. Show it in action.
Who was the subcontractor? Who got the electrical contract?
Exactly.
And when they built that gun, how many work days did they have without an accident?
How much copper did they use? Where did they get that from?
Oh man, I have actually read books where, like, the first page tired my ass out. There was so much exposition in it. It's like, they're talking about, well, why did she wear that color to her, on her socks and stuff like this, and they're going on and on and on. It's like that's not storytelling. That's like Wikipedia,
Right.
So yeah, there is a fine edge of balancing between telling a good story and what have you. And who, you mentioned that Tyrone's helping you a little bit with your writing. Have you? Again, I'm kind of curious, did you read up on writing, or are you kind of just having a more organic kind of experience with it, where you're letting it happen and then refining it as you go along? Tell us a little bit about your process.
Pretty much like what you just said. It's when I've been doing my comics, it's been like when I'm drawing them out in storyboard, which is Tyrone used to get into me about that. He's like, why don't you write them out first and then draw them? For me, it's kind of like the backwards. I have to draw it out because as I'm visualizing it, I'm picturing it, and I'm actually picturing it like as if it's actually happening. So I'm there, and I'm looking at, the angles, which naturally can be always changed, but the conversations of what's being said, how it's being said, and I always look at it when I'm in those worlds. I'm looking at it as in the sci-fi world. Not so much just the world of right now, but we're in a war. So what's being said in these types of situations that in a sci-fi universe, from just things that you see that you just always like to see and those kind of things with just those things. And, for me, it's pulling those conversations out and putting them there, and sometimes it may not be as grammatically great. I try to get my commas and everything in there and try to put this, but sometimes it's just the language of, we don't always talk proper,
Well, that's true. And if we were to examine the art of dialogue, dialogue is tough to write if you're new to it, because a lot of people want to write the way people speak, and that's almost unreadable. Like, if we did a transcript of this show, you say words, sometimes I say words over your words and stuff like that. We both know what we're talking about and answering each other's questions, but it's hard to read. So, doing dialogue is always a little tough. I like the fact that you're able to organically go about the art of writing a story, because sometimes that's kind of hard to do, because people will write stuff and then they fall in love with it and then they won't improve it or change it or edit it. And the thing about commas, you go and you buy yourself a it's kind of editor. You know what I mean? You get to that point where, it's the same way. You would draw your mechs and then have somebody else color them because that was not your top skill set, and you knew that other people could do a better job of it. And it's the same way for writing. You know, the woman who edits my stuff, I'll make the same mistake about 8 or 9 times in a manuscript, or 50 or 80 or 100 times in there. And of course, she'll write a snarky little note like, why do you keep doing this? And I go, because when I wrote it, your ass wasn't in the room editing it while I was writing it. So I didn't know when I did it for the 100th time that you didn't like it. So, I mean, it's a learning process, man. And hopefully it doesn't get to the point, especially for me, where it's not fun.
Right.
You want to be a storyteller. You want to show people, I got some pretty badass art, and I got what I think is a good story to go along with it. And I think that's the essence of the positive feedback for the creative process. And of course, the other essence of the positive feedback for a creative process is getting some money in your pocket. This is why we do what we do. Otherwise, we would be writing, doing sketchbooks at home and nobody would see them, or writing diaries. So again, positive feedback is important, but you hopefully don't get past the point where it's not fun. Hopefully you're not going to run into that plateau again where you're just going to go, screw this. I got to step back. I got to go make some money. I got to go drink. I got to go, do what I have to do and get away from it so that I can clear my mind. I'm excited for you because you got so much cool stuff. I mean, the 3D stuff is so great. I mean, to just watch, and I hope you post stuff at BSFS to show us your progress, because that's exciting. And that also gives other people ideas. Other people are going to think, look what he did. I think I can do this, So we're getting to the point where the software, I know the part that you don't like yet, because you haven't mastered it. Obviously, it's not as much fun. But if you can get to the point where you translated your hand skills to mouse, keyboard, and pointer skills, that once you get to that point, think of how creative you're going to be. It's going to be a race between you and your bud over who's going to be able to render the coolest looking ship. And I think that, again, that gives you another kick in the pants for the fun part.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely look forward to it.
Yeah. So we got about 5 more minutes, and then we're going to bring Jarvis in. But let me ask you this: as you're sitting here right now in Detroit, and I'm sorry you live in Detroit, but okay, it's fine. I guess it's okay. It's not like Flint where the water was making your brain dissolve, or where it was. There was, and he knew that. That was, anyways, the governor set it up so that a whole town was drinking lead-tainted water. Yeah. That's what you need to know about Republican governors. All right, enough politics. But as you sit there in your chair, where do you think you're going to be 5 years from now? What do you think is going to be the kind of cool part? Where do you think you will have arrived in 5 years?
5 years?
Yeah.
In 5 years, what I would really like is I would hope that the demand is even greater for me.
What you have today. Yeah. For what you're working on today.
Yep. That people will want to see more. That they'll just be saying, Thomas, you got to do some more. I want to see some more stuff. Put out some more comics. Put out another book. We got to see some more web comics. You can't stop with this one anime. I got to see some more. I'm thirsty for some more. That's where I'm hoping that, because it's gonna drive me even further than I'm already being driven. I got people behind me saying, don't stop here, keep on going. We see we see all these names of these comics you plan on releasing. Get to them. So I'm hoping that people will want to see a lot more from me, and that will continue my dream, as far as getting a product out there that people are enjoying, that they're happy with, and that they can say, this takes me back, or this is something that they've been wanting to see for a long time, and that I'm saying that I'm able to keep everything in that consistency, to where it's like it's not deviating to where it just went corporate, and now you got all these other people writing all these stories that don't have anything to do with it, and I'm I'm not talking about people that's friends of mine, but the corporate aspect where it's just, okay, just about making money only, and the soul of the story is gone.
Well, that's a good question to ask you, though. What if Disney comes to you and says, "Oh man, we're really sorry about that other thing where we didn't want you. Here's a big fat ass check for you, and we want to take over your stuff." At this point, I would imagine that you would say, "Forget about it. I got too much stuff to do ahead of me." But what if you get to the point where, you know, things are fairly mature? Let's say you've got all 4 of the volumes out, you know, of the big books, and the comics are self-sustaining. You know, do you think that there's a chance that you might be in a position to say, okay, fine, I can let go of this because I can always create something else, you know, even cooler? How do you feel about your intellectual property? Are you really proprietary about it and you don't see yourself ever letting it go? Or do you think that you've got enough other cool creative things in your head that, yeah, I can let this go because I can do X, Y, or Z, or get away from this completely and do something different?
Well, with that, I'm a little on the 50-50. Because,
okay, yeah, you don't know. It could happen. It might not happen.
Yeah, and also it's the thing of, you know, yeah, money is great. A lot of money is greater, but it's not the thing that always makes you happy.
Right.
You know, because it's like,
tell that to the lotto winners.
Right.
I'm sorry.
You know, because the fun was building everything, and sometimes it's not just to give it away. You know,
sure.
Sometimes it could be all the money in the world. Not that I've experienced that, but you know, the thought of it is just sometimes it's just saying, you know, it could be the satisfaction of just knowing they approached me and said, you know, we want it. We want to give you X amount of dollars for it. And I am in a position to say no. You know, some people may say you're crazy. How could you? Why would you create all this stuff and then just say no to it? But sometimes it's just about, you know, well, who says they're the only ones that's going to ask for it? You know, maybe I don't want to give it to just them. You know, it's a lot of different things.
Yeah, I go through the same thing, you know, as a creative. You know, if somebody came to me, if Warner Brothers, you know, really picked up on the interest that they expressed a few years ago, and if somebody came to me and said, you know, we want to option Dark Side, we want to take these books to movies. Here's a ridiculous amount of money. Here's $10 million, William. Would I do it? And you know, as I sit here, you know, I'm even ambivalent about that. You know, obviously $10 million is enough money to retire on.
Right.
But you know, Dark Side was the first thing I ever did. But can I not do something creative that would be just as good? You know, there's a like, I'm like you, 50-50 chance. Yeah, I could probably push out something else that is just as cool. But you know, it is my baby.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I know you. I mean, look at all the stuff, the potential you have. I can't imagine you not sitting back and saying, you know, I really got to think about this. This is my baby. But you know, so I guess that's, you know, it's a wish that somebody's going to come to you and say, hey, I like your stuff so much that we really want to take it to another level. But then it's tough to let go of your baby. So. You know, I understand exactly how you feel, but you know what? If they upped it to $100 million, you all would have a hard-ass time ever finding me. I'm not going to lie. If I had $100 million in my pocket, they'd be going, whatever happened to that Genesis sci-fi show? Nah, I don't know. You know, that boy just disappeared. I think he got hit by a bus or something. So I mean, it's hard. And people go, oh, money isn't everything. Yeah, say that when you don't have any. You know, that's the tough part. Well, that's the tough part because, you know, business people will try to get you at your lowest so that they can maximize their profits. And like you said about, you know, this is why a lot of creatives don't understand about contracts and about, you know, retain a lawyer for your first contract so that they could go through it and tell you if there's something in there that could trip them up. And it's tough because it's tough to spend money on a lawyer at the very beginning.
True.
But it really works out in the long run. Dude, we ran out of time. This went too fast. We'll have to have you back. So, well, no, I'm serious. I mean, did it feel like 2 hours to you?
No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm pretty good. We'll just say it that. But I want to thank you, man. This was a great show. You gave us so much about how you got where you got, what you do to do what you're doing, and then where you think you're going. All of those are really important things that I think creatives need to hear. And it's also good. It's especially good when we're able to interview and talk to Black creatives who are going to make a difference, or they're already making a difference. And people who've got creative minds. Here's the deal. For the most part, we don't exist. In America's lexicon, there's no regular, creative Black folks, except for some actors or maybe a couple writers, But the people who are putting in so much time and effort, look at the innovative things you're doing. You're in 3D technologies, which is right at the cutting edge. And I want to thank you for being here and sharing all of your all of what you did with everybody on the show. So thank you, and I want everybody to check out, try to find you on Facebook. You're going to look for Thomas Johnson II. He's got the RAXON Universe Dominion.com website, RAXON, RAXON Universal Dominion.com. To check out, some of the things that are happening with you. And then, of course, keep us posted. Obviously, I tell everybody, post up on the BSFS events calendar when you're going to be at any of these conferences and conventions.
Definitely.
So that people can stop by and see you. And like I said, if you make it to C2E2, hell, all of you come here, I'll take you all for breakfast. We're going to go to this nice little place around the corner here, and we're going to have that country, that country breakfast with biscuits, gravy, country fried steak, eggs your way, potatoes, what have you. So I will. You guys can try to come and break my bank, but it ain't happening. We're going to have a good breakfast. Thomas, man, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate you being here.
Oh,
and,
thank you.
I hope we see you all again. And let's see, it's time for Jarvis to slide on here, say his goodbyes, and we'll continue and catch you on the next show. But go ahead, Jarvis.
All right. We pretty much covered everything, so I just want to keep it really brief and thank everyone for participating on this. And Thomas, thank you for your time. I mean, the stuff that you shared with us is really invaluable, and that's what the show is about. It's about sharing information with each other about what we're doing. We're not talking about random crazy topics and what ifs. We're talking about people that are actually out here doing what we say we want to see and what we want to do. And so we want to continue to share that with each other and support each other in all these endeavors that we're doing, whether it's animation, art, writing, whatever. It's great to have people on like you that share your products and experiences with everyone else. So thank you very much. And also, like I said, thank everyone for participating. Thanks, William, for making it entertaining as always. And that's pretty much it, man. I really am excited about the things that people are doing here on the site.
Definitely.
And then as soon as Jarvis closes out the show and we stop the recording, just hang on for a couple minutes if anybody has any last-minute questions in the chat room, okay?
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Remember, you can pick up this podcast on our YouTube channel as well as our TalkShoe channel. And for the most part, this show is every Friday night beginning right around 9 Eastern. Tell your friends, listen live, and, join the conversation. Thank you, everybody, and I hope everyone has a great weekend ahead or whenever you pick this up. Good night. 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 Good night.